You got it? Silence it, perfect. It's on, good. All right, for guests and visitors, my name is Steve Perley, club president. I'd like to welcome you all to the 34th meeting of the 48th year of the Dublin Worthington Rotary Club. Today's invocation and pledge of allegiance will be offered by Mr. Jerry Katz.
Does he know that?
I think Shirley told me Jerry was going to do it.
Yes, it's true, it's true. But he has so many hats. It slipped my hats for cats.
But cats in hats.
He's so busy, he's got two bags now.
Cats in a hat, is that what you said? I think it's something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
You
could do the pledge first.
Let's mix it up. Let's do the pledge.
We gotta get the flag ready.
There we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sure, you could sing an ad.
No, he's not. That's not the right one. I've already grown.
Better be good.
What did I do with it?
It folds up here.
No.
During an initial announcement or something.
Well, this is terrible. We let him do the books.
Yeah, well,
You want us to move on to announcement and we'll come back?
oh, we're gonna have a rerun.
Well, if you'll pray with me to a higher power, we recognize and say thank you for the blessings that you've laid on us. We pray today for those around the world that are ill, suffering, and victims of war. Give them comfort and strength. Be with the caregivers and bless them with wisdom and patience. Be with the members of our club to give us the desire and energy to help others and improve our communities and the lives of the people who live there. We pray too for the people that live in the areas where our club is doing projects. Keep them safe and healthy. For these prayers and the prayers on the hearts and minds of us collectively, we all humbly say, Amen.
Thank you, Jerry. Mr. Carter, can you please make your way up here?
Can we sit down now?
Yeah, you can sit. Stand. We've got a number of visitors and guests today, but before we get to that, I want to bring up a very special person, Ms. Connie Hendrick. So glad to see you back. We have such a ray of sunshine. It's so good to see you. We got you a little something.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yellow flowers.
Oh,
You be some rain.
You guys are absolutely the best, the very best. I've missed every one of you and thank you for all the cards, flowers, prayers. I enjoyed every, that was the good part. So, thank you.
We have three guests today. Ken Robinson from the Pathways Rotary Club. Raise your hand. One clap, welcome. And Nancy and Jeff Stefani from the Pathways Rotary Club. And our speaker will be introduced later by, who is it? Who's introducing our speaker? I thought it was me, never mind. Gary's got it.
You know, I'm just waiting to make sure. All right, announcements. If you have announcements, please make your way up here. I will start off. As you guys should know, we have a district conference that's happening this Friday and Saturday. So jam-packed schedule. I'm looking forward to the 5:30 happy hour on Friday. It'll be fun. I believe Teresa and I are going. If you are going, let me know. I'd love to know who else is going from our club. Mike, let's go to you next.
All right, we're just under a month away, or about a month away from the greatest golf outing in Central Ohio. So, the Dublin Worthington Rotary Memorial Golf Outing, going to be held May 26th at Glen Ross Golf Club in Delaware. So I've got the sign-up sheet here. You got anybody wants to play, and then we've had quite a few different people here, and I'll be passing it around for the next few weeks. So sign up. We get playing. Thank you.
Andrew.
Arbor Days this Friday, so we will be delivering trees to fifth graders tomorrow. So if you want to deliver trees, see me and Mike after the meeting. Thank you.
How many trees do we have?
We have over 300 trees.
We have 306 trees for delivery to the schools. They're getting 286 of those. So we do have a few extras. If anyone wants to donate some money to Rotary, we'll hand out a few extra. They're pinyon pine, they're 2-year plants, got nice branching, and they're very drought tolerant. So if anybody wants to pitch in, we have a few extras.
And we're delivering to 4 schools, so if we could get 4 drivers, that'd be great.
Still able. Yeah, win.
Yeah, I mean, this guy just walked in, he's new to the club.
New prospective member,
Introduce yourself.
Danny?
Yes.
Yes. Welcome.
See another one that popped up.
All right, like I said, it's still April, still focusing on polio plus, as I've heard, we currently have 18 members that qualify out of our 75. Historically, we do about 20 a year, so if you have not made your polio plus annual fund $125 contribution to be a member of the 125 club, 125 club. Please do so ASAP. Okay. The sponsorship drawing. So, as you guys know, we held bourbon raffle, and it, in some ways met expectations, in some ways didn't. So we still have some fundraising to do. And everybody's favorite fundraiser is the sponsorship drawing. The good news is, the bad news is we're gonna have it again. The good news is, instead of $200, we're only gonna go for $100 per member. And so each member is responsible for raising $100. You can either sell them for $20 a piece, that's 5 tickets at $20 a piece, or you can buy them all yourself. Jim Miller will be sending out a spreadsheet later this week on Friday where you can go and put, your ticket names down and that sort of thing. And I think Jennifer is going to be sending, where Jennifer goes.
Invoice on Monday with instructions again.
Perfect. So there we have it. Prizes will be first place $750, second place $500, and third place $250. Okay. And let's see. Special announcement. We're gonna have a club assembly on May 24th during the regular club meeting. The purpose of this, the reason I tell you ahead of time, is to get you thinking, so you can come prepared, is what do you want out of Rotary and our club? I've been the president for almost 2 years now, tried a number of things. We're quite a bit out of COVID now, so with Teresa coming in July, we thought it was a good time to talk about things that are working, things that aren't. What do we want out of our club? So come join us on May 24th for a discussion around that. And then finally, just as a reminder, if you have any news you want to share with the club, please send it to PR@dublinworthingtonrotary.org. Okay, now we're ready for our sergeant. Mr. Allen first.
Can you blame them? Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see you all here today. I feel like I must be Tom Rice because there's nobody sitting in the front row. I'm just saying. All right, let's start off with happy dollars. Anybody happy today? Oh, yeah. Andrew, gosh, it's been a couple of years, I think, since we've been here. Thanks for your guidance, Mr. Katz. Andrew's gonna carry the pot for us, because he's been gone for so long. We're happy to see him. So, who all is happy? Yes, sir. Pete.
Well, I'll say, I'm happy to have been invited here today. I'm the Xavier C. Miller. And I'm also happy that two of my club members and one of their spouses from the Pathways Rotary Club, the online e-club of your district to the Northwest, District 5600. And you should come here today, live and in person, to listen.
Thank you. Who else is happy? Connie.
I'm just happy to be here and seeing you guys' faces. It's made my forever.
Well, I'll thank you, Connie. We're so happy you're here. And in fact, we're so happy that everybody's gonna put in a happy dollar just because you're here. Okay. So we'll get the happy thing out of the way right now. Y'all can call it a fine if you want it. I'm calling it a happy dollar. Who else has other things to be happy about? George.
About 10 days ago, I became a great grandfather.
What makes you so great? No, oh, it's the foundation donation. I got it. And who else? Thank you, George. Anybody? Bueller? Oh, wow, what an unhappy club we got here. Glad you're all happy for got it. All right. So if you didn't happen to wear your name badge today, if you walked right by that case out there, please wrangle Andrew down. And while he's going around, if you're not wearing this cool pin that I know you got when you joined the club, you know, that's my thing. So you'll have to put a dollar in for those things. So we have a sergeant every week. Who doesn't like it when the sergeant does quiz games? Right, before we test now, how do you really feel? If you don't like it or pardon me, I said that backwards. If you do like it when the sergeant does quiz games, you go up there. All right, I don't like those quiz games, so everybody with their hand up gets to throw a bunch. All right, who in this room? Again, we're gonna have to rely on this stat thing. Who in this room played golf last week? Raise your hand. Raise them up high so we can see. All right, everybody else that didn't take advantage of the beautiful weather that we had, whether you're a golfer or not, throw a bucket, because you should be playing golf because it's a wonderful sport. If you want to ruin your back. All right. Who knows what day today is? Retro what?
Pretzel.
That's not the one I'm looking for. Maybe. What else?
I got it.
What?
Administrative Professionals Appreciation Day.
Oh, heck no.
At least that's not.
Any other? Any other, that's not on the Hallmark calendar. Any other guesses? All right, it's National Zucchini Bread Day.
Oh,
So since y'all didn't know that, we can add a dollar. And then, okay, all you Zoom people. Did any of y'all look out the window this morning? It's a beautiful, beautiful, amazing day. So for that, I've authorized on your behalf, Jennifer to find you $1. So she'll keep track of you. This is implied consent. This is just like the record club used to be. It's coming unless you tell her don't. All right. And then finally, without looking at your calendars now, no cheating. Yes, sir.
Jennifer might be paid extra for this additional administrative burden you laid on her.
No, she volunteered for it. She was voluntold. All right. Don't worry, we'll share.
There's plenty of seats up here.
When is our next 5 Wednesday month? Does anybody know? When is the next time we have a month with 5 Wednesdays?
Next month.
You're right. Everybody else gets to put in $1 because we want you thinking about that rah-rah that'll happen
On the 26th, 4th, I think, of the month. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Not a joke, wait.
Yeah.
Why did the leopard have so many vacation days left over at the end of the year?
Didn't use all the spots.
She wanted to go on vacation, but she couldn't find the right spot. Got that out of Jerry's playbook.
No, you didn't.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elders. All right, now I believe we are ready for our program. Mr. Jim Farmer, you do the honor.
It is my pleasure to introduce to you Steve Miller today. Steve has already introduced himself and taken away half my thunder, so I'm gonna do the best I can here. He's a graduate of OSU and he's president of the Pathways Rotary Club, which he told you is a online club. I didn't even know such a thing existed. And he has a 30-year career in air traffic control, and he's gonna tell us why we have, the next time we fly, we have a better than 50% chance of surviving. Steve, please.
Yeah. Okay. Like to see what I'm doing. Hey.
Nope.
All right, well, again, thank you for inviting me. Oops. I love just getting out and meeting Rotarians live and in person. We are an online club, so I don't often get to do this. Even though I live about a mile northwest of here in Worthington Hills, and there's a club that meets 1,000 feet from my house, but still I'm in an online club. So here we are, and this is how I get out to tell you about the history of air traffic control, a little bit about how a lot of it ties into here in Columbus. And then there was an incident this Sunday morning you may have seen on TV.
Oh.
I'm going to save that to last and tell you a little bit about how air traffic control was involved in that. So here's the premise, why you probably won't die the next time you fly. Really, the chances are very, very slim. And I'm also a docent over at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, and they have these lovely signs up during COVID. And I thought this really was appropriate for this presentation. So their thing is maintain 6 feet distance. Well, we have to do a little more than that, but 6 feet works. If you don't hit, everybody's fine. So the big 3 words that define air traffic control are safe, orderly, and expeditious, in that order. Our ultimate goal is to keep you safe. We try and do it in an orderly fashion. We try and do it as quickly as possible. We try our hardest to get you there when you want to be there, if not earlier. But if you get there tomorrow and you're still alive to do it, we're good with that. So it's just those priorities. So it started here in the United States in St. Louis with that guy sitting in his control tower at what became St. Louis Lambert Airport, Archie Lee. He's got his umbrella, he's got his flags, which is how he directed airplanes, with a green flag for takeoff, green flag if it's clear to land, red flag, don't do that. Very simple. That was in 1929. Here in Columbus, we got something a little more advanced when they built the new Port Columbus Airport adjacent to the railroad tracks. The Pennsylvania Railroad tracks, and built that lovely terminal with the tower. You can see up in the top there, that's a picture from inside that tower of an air traffic controller in the late 40s, actually, using what's known as a light gun. And it's basically an electronic version of Archie Lee's flags. Red for stop, don't do that. Green, do it. White, an extra added color for taxi out, taxi back in. And you can make it flash, which also gives messages. So why Columbus was key to air traffic control and commercial aviation is because of where they built the airport. And that's because it was built next to the Pennsylvania Railroad tracks to start transcontinental air transport, where they set up a service that for the first time you could take a train from New York City overnight to Columbus. You get up at 7 in the morning, walk through the terminal out to 4 trimotors like those. And then You bounced your way through many cities, all the way out to Waynoka, Oklahoma, where you got on another train, went overnight to Clovis, New Mexico, got onto another Ford Tri-Motor and bounced your way across the desert skies to Los Angeles. But you could do that in way less time than it took to go across the country by train in 1929. And that led to the expansion of having air traffic controllers at different airports because you finally had the traffic that required it. So how you navigated around the country? Well, first of all, it was mainly by looking out the window. You were mainly doing it in daylight, and there was the old line of IFR, I follow railroads, which sort of worked. But to start flying at night in the 1920s, they established airways. And the very first experimental airway was from here in Columbus, at what used to be the old Norton Field. That was on Broad Street, just a mile south of where Port Columbus is, but is now long gone. And McCoy Field in downtown Dayton, which is also now long gone, but it was a lighted airway. They had beacons across the path so pilots could follow it even at night. Then they went on to be able to have radios small enough to be in airplanes. And they went to things called radio ranges. You could set up a set of antennas that would broadcast 4 different beams. You would have one that was heading either north-south and then east-west. On each of those areas, on each of those beams, it would either do a dot dash, the letter A, or a dash dot, the letter N. If the two combined, you were on one of the 4 courses that range defined. If you're off to one side, you'd hear just the single letter, but a single tone meant you were on the beam. By the 1950s, they had something called very high frequency omnidirectional ranges. The closest one of those surviving stations is up east of Johnstown, called Appleton. It's off Sportsman's Club Road over there. But they worked at much different higher ranges at higher frequencies. And instead of just 4 airway possibilities, you had 360 all the way around the clock. So in the 1930s, they realized there had been some very close calls between airplanes between airports. So the airlines got together and put together what's known as an en route control center. They started out with just one in Newark. They expanded to Cleveland and eventually Chicago. And how the pilots told the ground controllers where they were was by talking to things known as airway radio stations. They radio down to a station on the ground who would call by landline these centers. And you can see the guys there putting little pieces of paper on little pieces of plastic and moving them around the airways. And so it's all based on what the pilots, where they think they are, as best they know, and where they think they're going to be at the next waypoint, and these guys marking it out correctly. Thankfully, radar came in during World War II, a British invention that we adapted, but it took until 1950 until it was first used for air traffic control here in the United States. First place was in Washington, D.C. at Washington National Airport. Guy on the top of the picture there is using the first radar display at Washington National. And then it expanded in 1955. 5 years later, they finally got long-range radar. And that was at Washington as well. This shorter range radar was only about 50 miles, 50 nautical miles away from the airport, could see anything. The long-range radar out to about 250, but it went around much slower. So by 1956, we had a collision. And my organization was really founded. It had been called the Civil Aviation Administration up to this. But after this accident over Grand Canyon, when 2 airliners came together, just flying visually, looking out the window, but not seeing each other, that they decided to expand control across the United States at 10,000 feet and above by putting more and more radar stations out there and linking them to ground control stations. After that accident, they finally covered the United States below 10 or above 10,000 feet by the mid-60s. Took that long. They split it up into 22 different control sites. The airspace directly above our heads right here, controlled by folks over in Indianapolis, and it's about 13,000 feet that they control it here. Folks in Cleveland are the ones just about Mansfield and north. But they put an aircraft, these things called radar transponders. When the radar beam goes past that aircraft, it sends back a coded 4-digit number that's been assigned to it that ties in with that aircraft's flight plan that it has to file before it leaves. And that comes back to the airplane, tells exactly who that plane is, and starting in the 1970s, could tell exactly what altitude they were at based on the plane's altimeter. Became really useful. In the 1980s, the late 80s, they got computers that were good enough to be installed in at least airliners that could see the other aircraft's radar transponder signal and let the crew know if they possibly were going to collide with that aircraft and give them suggestions on how to miss it. It was still up to the pilots to make a miss, but they would give suggestions. Problem was, both airplanes might suggest the same way of going. Let's both climb, or let's both descend. And if they didn't see the other airplane, that could get ugly quickly. It took until the 90s before the computers were smart enough to exchange the information between them. And okay, you have your crew climb, we'll have our crew descend, we'll make this work. But that's what happens now, thank goodness. In the 90s, we got GPS, the global positioning system. No longer had to depend on ground-based navigation. Aircraft, as long as they could see the satellites, were able to do their own navigation. And it led to a thing called automatic dependent surveillance broadcast, where the aircraft receives the GPS signal and it sends out its own signal then that it can either go up to a satellite or down to a surface station. And every second it tells everybody who I am, how high am I, where am I at above planet Earth, in what direction am I going at what speed, every second. When I had to retire out of the profession 2011 at the age of 56, which is what air traffic controllers working for the Federal Aviation Administration have to do. The month we turn 56, we're out of there. We didn't have this yet. It was available in the aircraft, but we didn't have a way to display it on the ground yet. But in the subsequent 12 years, that's become the primary way that everybody on the ground can see where these aircraft are. When I was there, the terminal radar here at Columbus, every 4 seconds, you'd see where an airplane was. And that's not a lot of time, you would think, but going 240 miles an hour, say, you're going 4 miles a minute. That's a whole bunch of space. So you really had to learn how to lead these aircraft when you needed them to turn and do precise things. If we lost our fast scan radar, we'd fall back on a long range radar. And that's every 10 seconds. And if you're used to every 4, that seemed like forever. And we had to expand the miles between airplanes that we used. Normally the terminal radar, 3 miles horizontally, 1,000 feet vertically. If we had to go to the long range radar, 5 miles and still 1,000 feet. So significant days. August 3rd, 1981, Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization went on strike. They wanted to get much better equipment. The stuff was really outdated and they wanted better pay. And that led to me getting hired. I am one of the people who came in right after the strike in 1981 and got hired as a controller. So, oops, I don't know if I'll be able to do the thing here to get it to play the video. Well, anyway, 9/11, incredibly significant day. Ah, there we go. And here's what was going on that day, hopefully. Anyway, we had all the planes in the United States land. Down at the bottom of the screen there, the information for your aircraft flight plan, but we can also send messages. It comes on those. Those are the messages. Wow. Skip ahead. There we go. Every one of those little things is an airplane. And it'll tell you right here what time and what was going on that morning. And for the first time ever, you'll see every darn one of those planes land. I had worked a 4 to midnight shift at the tower the night before. So my wife, whose boss had a little TV in his office, saw about the first airplane hit the first tower, called me at home, woke me up. I turned on the TV just in time to see the second plane hit the second tower. I got dressed, drove from over here, Worthington Hills, over to Port Columbus. By the time I got there, 40 aircraft that never thought they're going to be in Columbus, Ohio that day were on the ground here. And my colleagues who did that, I'm still amazed. I sat down to an empty radar scope. It's the first time in my career I'd ever seen that. Even at 3 o'clock in the morning, here in Columbus, we have airplanes. You have at least a police helicopter, you have cargo haulers. But there, just like you're seeing here, everything landed. And it was incredibly spooky. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, the Columbus police helicopter popped up. And they said, "Hi, Columbus Approach, we got word that we're allowed to be up now." By that time, we had a loudspeaker with a holler line to NORAD in Colorado Springs. They had a radar aircraft that was up over Lake Erie. And I hear the controller in the radar plane telling Colorado Springs, "We see a target 8 miles west of KCMH, which is the 4-letter identifier for our airport, on this transponder code. We're launching fighters hot from Springfield." And I tell the police helicopter, "You've got F-16s inbound with rockets. You might want to land and we'll discuss this on the ground." They landed in Berliner Park. So there was that. And then later that evening, President Bush came over top of here in Air Force One on his way back to the White House. It was a beautiful, clear evening at 7 o'clock. Our phones just lit up with people. "Oh my God, there's an airplane up there. Oh my God." And we're like, "Yes, there is. It's okay. We can't tell you what it is. It's fine. It's just fine, believe me." All right, how we make the miss. We have a 772-page at last count rule book we have to have memorized and know how to use by heart. We have a vast amount of rules, a vast amount of standards that keep airplanes from running into each other, moving safely. And I'm going to forgo that strip, but here is my workspace. That's the tower in Port Columbus with a panoramic view up there. Down below the radar system we had, we were the first ones in the country to get that installed in 2004. And then one of my favorite little memes from around the world. Yeah, got paid for looking out the window. And that really was the tool of the trade that we use most, just looking out the window when we're in the tower. We would spend 1 day a week in the tower, the next day working in the radar room, and then vice versa through the week. So you did it 2 or 3 times a week. I've often heard people compare our job to firemen. It's pretty boring until something exciting happens. And then you got to be ready for it. Sometimes something you never thought was going to happen. Here's where, I believe it was a year and a half ago, the gentleman on the right there, Darren Harrison, was a passenger in an airplane coming from the Bahamas to Florida, and the pilot had a heart attack. Darren was able to get in touch with air traffic control, and the guy to his left there, Robert Morgan, was the first one he talked to. Robert was able to talk him into how to fly the airplane and then passed him off to other controllers who were actually pilots. And they were able to get him to safely land his Cessna Caravan and save his life, the pilot's life, who survived in the end, and everybody on board. And I love the quote down there. "I'm proud to be part of the team and proud to be that voice in the night that lets everybody know it's going to be okay." So here's the stats. You really will be just fine. The last stats we had that were significant were for 2019 before COVID. 4 people on airline flights or associated with airline flights in the United States died that year. 2 of them were pilots of a cargo flight that crashed in Birmingham, Alabama. One of them was a lady who their airplane had to stop on the runway because of hot brakes, and they deplaned via the slides. She went down the slide and ran in front of a fire truck. The other one was a gentleman in Alaska who got out of a propeller-driven plane and turned the wrong way. Passenger confit at that point. But the odds are incredibly good. In fact, the National Safety Council said too small to even calculate. It goes out way beyond 5 digits. So I'm gonna pass on JFK Tower for now and see if I can go to the slide about what happened Sunday morning out here. So American Airlines flight 1958 going to Phoenix took off Sunday morning just before 8 o'clock. I'm at home in my jammies and my robe, sitting at the computer, and I get a call from a good friend of mine who is blind and has been his whole life, but he works with me at Voice Corps Reading Service, one of my other volunteer gigs. And he said, Steve, an airplane just went over and it sounds really, really bad. What the heck is going on? There was a live site online where you can listen to air traffic control radio transmissions called liveatc.net. And I said, well, let me get on that and find out. As it turned out, what it was, they sucked a goose or geese into the right engine just after they lifted off the ground. You can see the picture there in the center of the flames that kept spitting out of the right engine. But those pilots were amazing. They sound so cool and collected on tape, doing their thing, and the controllers as well. They got it all the way back around. If you can see on the little green line there, they take off from CMH, that's John Glenn, go east about the Hilliard, turn south, come back around while they're working on the problem, and finally turn back in when the airport is able to, that the long runway they need, the south runway, is available, and landed safely and even taxied to the terminal. And the last of that aircraft at the gate, where you have firemen out looking into the dead engine. Now, here's the next thing here. Let's see if I can get the audio up. You want to try, Steve? Sure. But the part is, as controllers on the ground, we're not the ones who are in peril. But we are going to do everything we can to assist that crew with giving them whatever information they need, getting everybody else the heck out of their way. And what you won't hear on this tape is all the coordination that has to go on between the tower controller and all the people that work at the airport on the ground, with the fire trucks, with the airport operations staff, and with the airline. All that's going on in the background while they're trying to talk to this crew and get them safely back on the ground. So if we can get it up here, I'll let you hear a little bit of that. But it's why we're there. That's the thing. Air traffic control, we're never going to die in an aircraft crash unless we get really bad, which we have had at our new tower, and some bad weather. An airliner go close.
Hi, Cecily. I just switched my
Oh,
whole
lovely
family
flashing
to
red light right in
Verizon.
my
Well,
face.
it's America's most
Tower
reliable
shaking
5G
it.
network.
And it's only $35 a line.
Not that you're bragging.
With Verizon Unlimited for $35 a line, your family now gets Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, all 3 included. Verizon.
Here in New York,
Oh, not that one.
in
Sorry,
one of the most pressure-packed offices around. It's air.
No. Anyway. He called Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. The 3-word call that alerts pilots and controllers that there's an emergency just after lifting off the runway. He told the tower that rather than coming back immediately to land, they needed to work on the issue and see if they could get things going, organized, and go through a checklist and burn off some fuel before they could come back to land. Going from Columbus to Phoenix, they were about as heavy as that Boeing 737 can be, full of fuel. And usually they actually can't land with that much fuel on board. It'll overstress the brakes and the tires to do it. So they really needed to actually burn some gasoline off and lighten the load before they landed. And we've got 2 runways at Port Columbus. One is 10,000 plus, the other one is 8,000. They took off on the long one, but they were afraid they might have left pieces of engine and or bird on the runway. But the airport operations got out, inspected the runway, and found out that there wasn't. And so by the time they're able to turn back around over Newark and come back in, they were able to land on the long runway safely. But all that's going around the background. If you can, I don't know if you can do it, but take the slider, roll it up to 27. Oh,
Double 706 on the ground 182 left taxi via Delta 3 Charlie.
Steady as she goes, Steve.
Crash land.
Yeah, right.
It'll be coming up here hopefully just in a
Don't
second.
nose it down.
I hit a goose.
Mayday, 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 American, 1958, we had a bird strike and an engine failure. American 1958, roger, can you make it left traffic back to the runway? We need straight out for now. American 1958, roger, and when you can, say your request. For American 1958, I don't think the runway is going to be good for us. On to the left, so we'd like to the right. American 1958, roger. Do you need to make a right-hand turn for 10 left? No, let's make left. Roger, left close traffic's approved, and just let me know if you need anything else. Roger.
And there's just a couple seconds more here. I think there's one more transmission. It's pertinent. Now, it's gonna be too long, but you can just pause and see, but sure. Anyway, that was the pertinent stuff. And while you hear that little bit from the controller has now fished up the crash phone, talked to the crash fire rescue, and is trying to decide from what the pilot's telling him which runway they're going to come back to. 10 left is the opposite end of 28 right. We use magnetic compass headings to name the runway. So 28, 280 degrees approximately, the right of two parallel runways. What the controller is trying to ascertain is, did they need to come back immediately, make a right turn and come back in, land opposite direction? Or could they keep going and come back around and land to the west? The wind was out of the west, southwest at about only 5 miles an hour, so it was negligible. But all those things have to be going through and get the crews going to the correct runway and get everything happening in the background while the crew was doing their checklist and while we're trying to keep everybody else away from them. Luckily, there were no other aircraft anywhere nearby. So again, something as bad as that happens, everybody came out of it just fine. So there's my thesis. And if you got any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer. Yes, sir.
Please pardon my engineering ignorance, but why aren't jet engines made with a screen on the front of them that allows sufficient air to flow through that'll take out bursts?
Well, I don't know this again. I'm not an engineer either, but from my understanding is that one, you can't, it's still going to have the pieces. You can't have a screen that would still allow enough air to go through in sufficient quantity and not let pieces go through. If you make it too big and too heavy, you're still going to have big pieces of goose going through. So nobody's come up with a good idea. This one even had a device they tried to use to scare birds off on the rotating center cone there in the front of the fan. They have a spiral painted that some scientists have said that should keep birds. They should be able to see that spiraling thing. Doesn't seem to work real well. Yes, sir.
Based on what you said about not being able to land because there was too much fuel on the plane. On 9/11, was that a problem for a lot of the planes that they still had too much fuel to land somewhere?
Yeah, it can be. And that's why not every plane anymore, but for a lot of years, planes had the capability to dump fuel where they could go up to, say, maybe 10,000 feet where the stuff would dissipate before it hit the ground and let the fuel exhaust out of the aircraft to lower the weight of the aircraft for landing. I don't know, not that many planes have that anymore because it's such a infrequent opportunity, and they had problems over the years of, who wants to have 10,000 gallons of aviation fuel, even if it's aerosol, dumped over their house. But yeah, that's part of the thing here. Yes, sir.
So other than readings or memorizing 720 pages, what's the training that goes in for air traffic controllers And then, what about the screen, who selects them and all that sort of stuff?
Well, with the Federal Aviation Administration, like with what I did, I got hired right after the strike. And we have an academy in Oklahoma City where you go through and it's pass fail. And the very initial screening process is done there after you've gone through things like your psychological examination. Yes, I passed long ago, psychological. Passed the security too. And then you go down there, pass fail. Our class was the first one in 5 years of a small class of 16 that actually all of us passed. They expected half of us to fail. And that's still the case, unfortunately. They expect about half the people to go through the initial training to fail. If you make it through, then they assign you to your first facility where it can take up to 2.5 years to be fully journeyman air traffic controller, do everything on your own. Here at Port Columbus, we were seeing an average of about 20 months when I left to get somebody in and get them trained. And so it's an arduous process, and a lot of it's done with on-the-job training. So they're doing the job, and like I spent about the last 5 years of my career training someone, sitting there watching this person work, giving them tips, but trying to let them do their own thing and get as close to having two airplanes close without actually coming too close. And then we talk about it later. So that's a little added stress. And yes, but it takes that long. Yes, sir. Does the military look at Columbus as a high target area during conflict?
I really don't know. I mean, we've got a tanker base down south of us here at Rickenbacker, so it's definitely a target, without a doubt, just there, just because of that. But I don't know beyond that. But yes, sir.
I was just wondering, what type of background would you be looking for in terms of better equipping a person to take on this kind of responsibility?
Well, surprisingly, what I got my degree in was communications. And I'll tell you, that's about 98% of what the job is. Being able to communicate clearly, being able to listen and understand what the person on the other end needs and how best to meet those needs. The rest of it is, I was a private pilot when I signed up. I found out about the job, really, I'd gotten my private pilot ground school here at Ohio State while I was in school there as an elective. And it just happened that while I was going through that, our instructor said, hey, they're coming here to give the civil service test for air traffic controllers. Why don't you guys go take it? Because you never know, might be a good job. It's free. Who knows? Went, took the test, got a 99 out of 100. Yay, Steve. But this was 1979. And they said after my score, well, hey, way to go, Steve, but we're not hiring. But if we ever do, keep in touch. August 3rd, 1981, I'm working at a little radio station, WMRN, up in Marion. And there was a strike. 11,000 people walked out. They called me 2 days later and said, hi, Steve, want a job? Yes, please. Starting out a big $16,500 a year, but that was $6,500 more than I was making working 7 days a week at WMRN in 1981. And there's benefits. Yay. Yes.
You know why pilots mumble over the intercom and they're always turned down so low? Is that like a joke now? Like
I really don't know. That's just, I guess their thing. I don't know. They don't know how it sounds back there. You can't get to the cockpit to tell them, or yes, that'll be an incident. That's why they put the locks on. No, it wasn't. Yes, sir.
So I feel sorry for those 50% of the people who take the test and don't get to be air traffic controllers.
Mm.
Do they do anything else with those or just say bye?
Nice to know you. Thanks for coming. Good luck in your future endeavors. That's it.
Here's something you might be suited for.
Nah, not really. It's like, hi, thanks for coming. Good luck in your next job. We hear McDonald's wants people. You can definitely say, would you like fries with that? You got that going for you. Yes, sir.
How many targets does a guy, he's got responsibility for planes? Can he handle 10, 20?
Yeah, it depends on the complexity, but there would be plenty of times when I'd have up to 20 aircraft that I was working at any one time. But that's about the max. You really don't want to have that many things going on at once. The redundancy's gotten a lot better. But it used to be that we would rather frequently lose our radar. And so you have to know exactly what's going on and where all those 20 aircraft were when the picture went away and you're looking into what's now essentially an empty washing machine. And figure out what you're gonna do with all 20 of those to keep them from whacking each other while things are restored. So you don't want to get that far out, but occasionally it happens. Usually about a dozen is a nice, steady, good way to go, but it gets worse and worse after that.
Is there a burnout?
Yeah, there is. And I can tell you, I'm a much happier guy since I got out of that job. Yes, sir.
I have a question. When you're looking at the dozen planes, is everybody else looking at a different dozen at the same time?
Well, you split it up into basically geographical sectors. And so like in the very slow times, I would be looking at everything within a 50-mile radius, pretty much of Columbus. Now, since I left there, just before I left, we took over what used to be Dayton Radar's airspace. We now control planes from surface to 13,000 feet, from Zanesville to Muncie, Indiana. And from as far north as just south of Lima, basically Bluffton, down to Middletown. So that big chunk of airspace, one person may be working. But then as it gets busier and busier, you split it off into smaller geographic areas.
We'll let Bala take the last question. Bala, did you have a question?
Yes, is the training the same for tower controllers and ground controllers, or is there different training for each of them?
For ground controller and tower controller, you do both of those jobs interchangeably. One day you may be working ground, or even part of the shift you work ground tower. There's a specialty called en route, the high altitude, and that is a whole different training scenario.
All right.
Tower, ground, they're pretty much the same.
Okay. Can you stick around? It seems like there's some other questions.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moulton, what are you doing?
Coming up here,
Okay.
I need to know the 4 volunteers that are gonna deliver trees to the school. I borrowed a truck to get them here, and I can't take them home with me. So glad 4 volunteers to take these trees to the schools.
Which,
I won. We got 1, we need 3 more. We got 2. Anybody else? Gotta have 2 more. Gotta have two more people out here somewhere. What's that? Well, the schools get approximately, they're in flats. And the schools, each school gets about 4 flats of trees. So Andrew's got the bags and the instructions with them, but those need to get delivered to the schools tomorrow.
what is that?
Yeah.
Car?
What's that? Yeah, 4 flats will fit in your car, but 16 flats, I had to borrow a truck to get 16 of them. It's not my truck, so that's why, yeah, you need 4 folks to help, Pete's gonna help, okay, I think, yeah, I think we have 4, thank you.
All right, good deal. We got a wrap.
Yeah.
How much?
$24 in the daily.
$4.
The last 4 digits are 9371.
9371.
Oh, that's good.
Can I try it again?
Trying to do it.
9411.
9411. Alan.
Always good to make.
$24. How many in the ace of spades?
$54.
$54.
Nine four
9405. Come on up.
Is that
I got 51 cards, maybe. Jack of Hearts. Okay. Yeah, there's a. All right, folks. It's that time. If you would join me in the recitation of the four ways to get you out of here. We'll go properly this time. Of the things we think, say, and do first.
Truth.
Third. And fourth. Thank you, everybody. Please remember to turn your cell phones back on and put your badges back in the box. Have a great rest of your week. We are adjourned.
Oh, yeah. Went and got my camera out of the car. Next.
Just bring it in.
Yeah.